Hello and welcome to News Intervention. Today we have a very special guest with us, Mrs. Bharati Ghosh. Mrs. Bharati Ghosh is a former IPS officer. She quit her job and joined politics. She is now the Vice President of BJP Bengal. Mrs. Ghosh, welcome to News Intervention.
Namaskar India, this is Bharati Ghosh from Kolkata and I thank News Intervention and Mr. Vivek Sinha for giving me this opportunity to present my views.
Mrs. Ghosh, West Bengal continues to be in the news for all wrong reasons. First there was COVID-19 and now Amphan. It's always said that the West Bengal government has not been able to handle the twin crisis properly. What in your opinion went wrong?
Well, Vivekji, that's a very tall question. This state government, the Trinamool government, is not competent to handle even a single crisis or half a crisis. This is because the state government lacks vision, and when the crisis does come, the state government does not play fairly in the interest of the people. In Corona and also in Amphan, there was no advanced planning, no preparation, no standard operating procedure, no action plan. And on top of that, there was very little fund allocated for handling the Corona crisis and absolutely no budget allocation for taking care of the repair and rehabilitation of the Amphan cyclonic storm victims. What we have seen during the Corona crisis is the Chief Minister of West Bengal making some moves on the road, trying to draw maximum attention to herself. While in the Amphan crisis, we have seen the same thing, that the Chief Minister is sitting in the control room the night of Amphan just to draw attention to herself. But on the other hand, she had not delegated any responsibility to her officers or the Council of Ministers, and we did not see any MLA or MP visiting their own constituencies and taking care of the victims. So what we have essentially seen is that the Chief Minister of West Bengal, the Trinamool Supremo, is trying to draw maximum attention to herself, and all her engagements are publicity driven. And what has heightened the crisis is that during Corona, there was gross undertesting, manipulation of the death figures of the COVID-19 victims, and secret disposal of the dead bodies. It was like a horror story. Further, during the crisis, there was complete breakdown of the law and order machinery. The lockdown was not enforced in many areas of West Bengal. A particular community was given long ropes to do whatever they wanted. The Chief Minister herself diluted the lockdown by opening up shops of non-essential items. And added to this heightened crisis, we had seen the Tikiapara incident where police officers got beaten up and assaulted, and the next day they were asked to go back and hold a peace march with the people who had kicked them. And it was like a very sad story because the police lost their respect when they went there to enforce the law and order. Further to this and added to this is the fact that the public distribution system was hijacked, and we saw Trinamool leaders apportioning the ration items, and all their distribution were publicity driven. This is what has happened during Corona. During Amphan, what did we see? We saw that the whole city of Calcutta lay submerged in darkness and underwater, and officials of the Kolkata Municipal Corporation and Calcutta Electric Supply were silent spectators, and the Chief Minister and her team, her Council of Ministers, did nothing to restore normalcy in the city. And despite the fact that we are having thousands of National Volunteer Force, thousands and thousands of Home Guards and civic volunteers, the army, whose duty is to defend the country, was finally called in to remove the fallen trees. And all of you are aware what happened with the migrant workers. They were not allowed entry in West Bengal. This government, the Trinamool Supremo, refused to take them back, although they are contributors to our state gross domestic product. And finally, with the intervention of the central government, when they boarded the Shramik Express, that Shramik Express was termed as Corona Express by this Chief Minister. In conclusion, I can say that this government has totally failed in handling both the crisis of Corona and Amphan, and has secured zero in the crisis tests.
There has been some reports that the state government of West Bengal has been fudging the death figures of COVID-19 victims. One, is this true? And if this true, then why do you think this is being done over there?
Yes, Vivek ji, it is indeed 100% true that the state government is fudging with the death figures of the COVID-19 victims. In fact, in an unprecedented way, this government set up an audit committee. And it is pertinent to note that since independence, this country nor the state has seen any such audit committee, although we had faced dengue, polio and the like. Such an audit committee was set up by the government to certify the cause of death in case of corona infected victims. And what is interesting is that this audit committee comprised of controversial figures, controversial people like Dr. Sukumar Mukherjee, who has the history of being indicted for medical negligence by the Honorable Supreme Court of India, and who had to pay huge compensation to the victim's family for medical negligence. Such persons comprise this audit committee, and with the setting up of such audit committee, the rights of the doctors who actually treated the corona patients were taken away. These doctors who were examining the corona patients and treating them were directed to send all the medical reports to the health department, which in turn would send them to the audit committee, and the audit committee would sit over the reports and decide the actual cause of death in case of corona victims. And from the inception of these audit committees till date, 72 cases were diagnosed as dead from comorbidity, although they were all infected with corona. And the entire exercise was in gross violation of ICMR and WHO guidelines. The medical fraternity was not happy. The non-resident doctors, in an open letter to the Chief Minister, said very clearly that non-reporting of COVID-19 as the underlying cause of death amounts to falsification of data. Now, if you're asking me, why would the state government, why would the Trinamool Sarkar do this? It's my personal opinion that the Chief Minister wanted to boost up her image. She wanted to project herself as the one who could control the COVID to the last extent, as one who is very successful and the best person to have kept the death figures of COVID-19 at its lowest. It was kind of a publicity stunt, but it failed, and there was huge negative publicity. It invited public wrath. And from 1st of May 2020, the entire exercise was set aside and this audit committee was disbanded. But even now, even after so much effort in manipulation of data, what we find is, although the audit committee is not there, but there is some effort on the part of the state to secretly dispose the dead bodies. And in the last few days, we have seen several burning ghats and several burial grounds where bodies have been brought in very secretly for disposal. And we can say that the state government is still trying to manipulate the real death figures of COVID-19 victims.
What is it that Bengal needs immediately? And what, in your opinion, needs to be done to check the COVID-19 cases in Bengal?
Vivek ji, this question has got two parts. The first part is what Bengal needs immediately, and the second part is that what must be done to check the COVID-19 crisis. Let me take the parts separately. Bengal needs parivartan, a change of guard. We need to restore democracy and rule of law to allow the systems to function neutrally. All the systems, including the healthcare system, the public distribution system, must be made free from political captivity. At the same time, there should be freedom of speech. The press cannot be bulldozed anymore, and the state cannot be allowed to move towards a police state. We need to free the state from the muscle power. At the same time, there are many talents, many professionals, intellectuals who lay in the corners of the state, dishonored and disrespected. We need their effective participation in the process of governance. We need to bring them back, and we need to actually bring them inside the system of governance, and we need their participation. At the same time, the public trust in the government institutions must be restored, particularly in the lowest level of self-governance. I think that should answer the first part of your question. What Bengal needs immediately? Bengal needs a complete change of guard and a clear parivartan. As far as the second part of your question goes, that what must be done immediately to check the crisis, I think the first step that the government should take is to restore confidence in the healthcare systems. The doctors and the healthcare professionals must be given the confidence. So the state government needs to talk to them and provide them with adequate personal protection equipments. The nurses who have left the state, in fact hundreds of nurses have left the state, they should be brought back, and the healthcare system should be improved with enough confidence building measures. The second important thing is the quarantine facilities. The quarantine facilities which are set up by this state have become the corona manufacturing centers. They're shabby rooms in which thousands and thousands of migrant workers who are coming back to the state are pushed into with very little toilet facilities, and the testing takes about 21 to 30 days. The state government must revisit the whole idea of quarantine and tie them up with the private nursing home facilities so that there are adequate and appropriate medical testing facilities, and also social distancing norms are maintained. One more important thing is that when the government orders people to go back to work, the government should arrange sufficient number of transports. It is not there, and there is large overcrowding in the transport system, and no social distancing norms are respected. We need the government to make the masks compulsory. We need the government to ask people to download the Ayush app. We need the government to distribute homeopathic and allopathic medicines free of cost. And further, we need the government to look at the red zones in the entire state and to enforce the lockdown afresh in these red zones so as to prevent a community spread. I think if all these steps are taken, that cumulatively we may see better days.
Let me shift to the case of Amphan destroying Bengal. Can you please explain what has been done till now and what could have possibly been done to mitigate the effects of this cyclone? And especially these cyclones have become a recurring feature for a coastal state like Bengal.
Vivekji, your question again has two parts, what has been done and what could have been done in Amphan. Crises like Amphan, or rather I should say cyclonic storms, are not new in Bengal. For several years together we have been witnessing such cyclonic storms, and I could give you many examples. In 2009 the Ayla came, destroyed much in West Bengal. And in April 2019 it was Foni. In November 2019 it was Bulbul, causing devastating damage in Sundarban Islands, and recently it was Amphan. So before the Amphan we had adequate warnings from the weather department. The central government had sent the national disaster management relief teams which had already hit the ground. And so the state government should have been ready. But there was no planning and no advanced preparation on the part of the state. There was no action plan, there was no infrastructure which was put in place, there was no state disaster team which was kept ready. And as a result, we saw that the metro city of Calcutta was submerged in darkness and was underwater for several days. And finally, despite the fact that we are having thousands of Home Guards, National Volunteer Force and civic volunteers, finally the army was called in to remove the damage and the fallen trees from the city. This is very unfortunate and shocking because the state government had enough opportunities to put in place a proper infrastructure with adequate planning, and the state government should have this Trinamool Sarkar, or rather the Trinamool Supremo, should have delegated responsibilities to her Council of Ministers, and the Council of Ministers should have gone to their respective constituencies and done their own bit. But nothing was done. And what is surprising is that for the last 9 years, the state government did not allocate any funds for handling such crisis. In the year 2020, the state government presented a budget very proudly, saying that 14,44,000 plus crores is the state's gross domestic product, and the growth rate is 11.3%, and also projected an estimated expenditure of 2,55,000 plus crores. And if the state can do that, the state can also allocate like 3,000, 4,000 crores as emergency fund for handling such crisis, put in place an infrastructure, and with a huge workforce of national volunteers, home guards and civic volunteers, the state could have been put in place a proper state disaster relief team. Additionally, when the city of Calcutta went underwater and was submerged in darkness for several days, officials of the Calcutta Municipal Corporation and the Calcutta Electric Supply Corporation stood as silent spectators, despite the fact that the cost of electricity per unit in this state is the highest in India. And the chairman of the Calcutta Electric Supply Corporation accompanies the chief minister in her foreign trips and has been awarded the Bongo Vibhushan award by the chief minister. So what did the Electric Supply Corporation do in such an emergency? Nothing. All the electric posts had fallen down, the city was in darkness, and all the government officials and the Trinamool MLAs, MPs, along with the officers of the Calcutta Municipal Corporation and the Calcutta State Electric Supply Corporation just stood as silent spectators as the city people suffered. So this is in fact a very hard reality, and it also shows that the state government has completely failed in the handling of the Amphan crisis.
The state government of West Bengal is at loggerheads with the governor, Mr. Jagdeep Dhankar. What exactly is the reason? Why is this happening in Bengal?
Vivekji, this is a very interesting question. Is the Chief Minister of West Bengal at loggerheads with His Excellency, the Governor of West Bengal? Well, the Chief Minister of West Bengal is at loggerheads with all opposition leaders. She is at loggerheads with anyone and everyone who raises a voice and questions her or opposes her. Everybody has got his or her own space in democracy. But she does not respect democracy. And for her, everybody is enemy, whoever has the guts to question her. Now, the governor's position is a constitutional position. He is the constitutional head of state, and his primary function is to preserve, protect, and defend the constitution. So eventually, he has to ask questions when he finds the situation is one in which he should ask a question. For example, when there was a problem in Jadavpur University, the governor did rush to the university and did ask questions because he is the chancellor of that university. And the governor was also stopped when he wanted to enter the assembly house. In fact, the gate designated for his entry was locked. So this is how the Chief Minister of West Bengal behaves. She does not understand that her position is also a constitutional position, and there should be mutual respect between her and His Excellency the Governor. Actually, you see, she's always in a confrontation mode. She always wants to fight. She has a gigantic ego. Her system of governance is somewhat dictatorial governance, and she wants that everybody in the democratic system should be resting and should go on a sleeping mode. So when she is on a confrontation mode, all should be in a sleeping mode, and that's what creates a problem. It is a very unfortunate state of affairs that when during the corona period, when dead bodies kept on piling in the hospitals and when senior journalists were called in the police station, the governor thought that the situation was apt to raise questions. And the chief minister thought that she should not be answering to the governor. She wrote huge letters and she kind of showed her disrespect to the governor in the same way in which she had shown disrespect to our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji just before the Lok Sabha elections 2019. For the city of Kolkata and for the state of West Bengal, we feel that a cinema or a movie, something like Sholay, is going on 24/7, 365 days, and someone is sitting in Nabanno, and whoever questions that person about anything that goes on in this state, that person sitting in Nabanno raises the voice and says, "Kitne aadmi the Kalia?" And we feel that while the movie Sholay goes on in the state and innocent people are tortured, journalists are called in the police station, there is no freedom of speech, dead bodies keep on piling in the hospital, somewhere a gabbar is sitting in the 14th floor of Nabanno and doesn't want anyone to ask questions.
Why is it that there are so many electoral deaths in Bengal? What is the reason behind this massive electoral violence in West Bengal? What exactly is the reason behind this?
Yes, there is huge electoral violence in West Bengal, not only before the elections and during the elections, but also in the post-electoral period. In fact, during the last Panchayat elections, more than 100 supporters of Bharatiya Janata Party were killed. And our national president, Mr. J.P. Nadda, had come over to Bengal to offer tarpan and prayers for the departed souls. The electoral violence, or if I'm permitted to take a wider connotation of political violence, is due to a number of factors which are working simultaneously and together. The first and foremost important factor is that the Saffron Party is making deep inroads into Bengal and fast emerging as the main opposition party to the Trinamool Congress. The second factor is obviously the fact that the Trinamool Congress is losing vast areas as their political base, primarily because of rampant corruption, high-handedness and arrogance. The third factor is this, that muscle power is being used by the Trinamool Congress to regain or recover the lost political territories. And the fourth is this, that cut money or illegal money is used to sustain that muscle power. And the fifth factor has already been highlighted by our national president, that there is no rule of law in Bengal, and the law enforcement agencies stand as silent spectator, and at times they are also a partner to the crime with the registration of huge number of false cases and arrest of innocent parties. So with an absence of rule of law, the Trinamool Congress is trying to regain the lost political territories by the use of muscle power, and this becomes the main cause of electoral violence in the state. There is another factor, a very important reason, is this: West Bengal stands third among states so far as the number of seats goes, immediately after Uttar Pradesh with 80 seats and Maharashtra with 48 seats. West Bengal, with a tally of 42 seats, occupies a significant position in the political demography of this country, and this leads to the unsatiated desire and unrealistic dream of the Trinamool Supremo to capture as many seats possible in order to play the role of a kingmaker or power broker and flex her muscles in the center and possibly bag the highest seat in the central government. This unsatiated desire or dream leads to state-sponsored violence. And so state becomes a sponsor of electoral violence in the state of West Bengal. So this state, which has seen a lot of struggle for the downtrodden, for the landless, for the weaker sections of society, in terms of the Tebhaga Andolon, the Naxalbari Andolon, even the Maoist movement, and later on the Shingur agitation, the Nondigram agitation, all these are now reduced to mere political vendetta and selfish battle for regaining lost political grounds. And the National Crime Records Bureau in 2013 put West Bengal on the top. This state accounting for 25% of the political murders in the entire country. And so the glory of the Bengali Bhadralok gradually fades away, and a kind of violent situation persists in the state.
We often hear about this cut money business in West Bengal. What exactly is this cut money and how big is this business in Bengal?
Cut money is a natural flourishing business in Bengal. Professor Indranil Dasgupta, an economics professor of the Indian Statistical Institute, places the amount of cut money as 30,000 crores per year in Bengal. This is what the politicians of the Trinamool Congress party earns in a year by virtue of commission from government contracts and everything that happens in the state. If someone wants to construct a wall in his or her own house, he has to pay cut money. If the rickshaw puller wants to place his rickshaw on the rickshaw stand, he has to pay cut money. If you are looking for a hospital bed, you pay cut money. If somebody wants a unit of blood for his child, he has to pay cut money. So from birth to death, it's a thing which cannot be avoided under the regime of the Trinamool Congress, where corruption is the norm of the day. So this is how the cut money business runs here, and a large portion of the cut money is used before the elections to sustain the muscle power, and it's a kind of vicious cycle where the muscle power gives rise to political power, and these people come back in politics and again continues with the cut money business. And today, what was once Sonar Bangla in the eyes of Rabindranath Tagore and in the eyes of the international community has now been reduced to cut money Bangla, and the chief minister is known as the cut money minister.
You were an IPS officer with a very bright career. I was reading through your resume. You've been to UN assignments. You were a Chevening scholar, and absolutely a brilliant career. What made you quit the IPS and join politics?
Vivekji, I did not quit my service. I was actually compelled to leave the service under very difficult circumstances. You see, I have never compromised on my principles, and not only in this country, but I have served the international community for quite a long time. And I was brought back here and placed in the most difficult of Jungle Mahal belts at a point of time when this government, the Trinamool Congress, could not control the rise of the Maoists. And from that situation, I brought in normalcy. I initiated the surrender of hundreds of Maoists. And the transition from that stage to a state of normalcy was very difficult. I placed my life at great risks, but did the job. And once the job was done, at the end of December 2017, when the by-election at one of the constituencies was held, in fact it was the constituency of Chaubong in West Midnapur, where I was the superintendent of police, the Election Commission of India imposed their faith in me, but the Trinamool Congress government gave me some illegal dictums which I simply refused to follow. I did not comply with whatever illegal dictums was given to me, and I did my best to ensure that the election was free and fair. And when the results did come out, the Trinamool Congress was not happy. They not only shifted me out, but they started threatening me, threatening my family, pressurizing me, and all kinds of nuisance started to follow. You see, I cannot work under the leadership of someone whom I do not respect. So I decided to part. And that is in a nutshell my story, why I was forced, literally forced, to leave the job, to leave the service I loved and I worshipped. And after I left the service, After quite some time after that, I decided to join the Bharatiya Janata Party, being inspired by the living legend, Mr. Narendra Modi. And here I am today, trying to serve my country once again, but in a different capacity altogether.
Let's talk about the Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP in West Bengal. The BJP Bengal unit has been formed, and you've been appointed as the Vice President of West Bengal's BJP unit. How confident are you about the party's chances in the coming West Bengal state elections?
We are very confident, very confident that Bharatiya Janata Party will form the next government in West Bengal in 2021. In fact, our Honorable Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah ji, has spoken about this on 1st of June this year to News 18 and CNN, saying that Bengal will see Parivartan as Mamata Banerjee had wished for, and Bharatiya Janata Party will form the new government in West Bengal with full majority. In fact, this is not the first time that the Honorable Home Minister speaks about this. Last year in October, he had predicted that the Bharatiya Janata Party will form the next government in West Bengal. And some days before that, prior to the Lok Sabha elections in 2019, he had predicted that the BJP will win 20 seats. In fact, we had won 18 seats, and there was a margin of 5,000 to 7,000 in 3 seats after all that political atrocities and large-scale rigging. So you see, Bengal is ready. We are ready for a Parivartan and change, and we are confident that Bharatiya Janata Party will be playing a new vibrant innings in 2021. And not only that, Bengal will see a new renaissance under the leadership of the living legend, Mr. Narendra Modi ji, and under the inspiring leadership of our Honorable Home Minister, Sri Amit Shah ji. And the Bengali Bhadralok in Bengal will be ready to put in his life for a glorious Bengal, Atmanirbhar Bharat and Atmanirbhar Bengal.
Mrs. Bharati Ghosh, thank you so much for talking to News Intervention.